Hello Nordangia students and welcome to our second constructing activity on web authoring using JavaScript. In this activity we're going to look at the console and conditionals, and we're going to be exploring how the console can help debug problems with the web page, and we're also going to look at how to identify how conditionals can be used in changing the output to the user. So if I go to Notepad++, I've written our basic template to enable us to write JavaScript, plus also some code here that's got an error in it. Now, when I run this, I want our browser to be able to tell us if there's an error and where it is. Can the browser do this? Well, yes, it can. And let's have a look in Google Chrome. So I'm going to save this. And in Chrome, I will refresh. And all it comes up with is, there is a mistake here somewhere. So how can I find this? So I can go to the three dots in the top corner, More Tools and Developer Tools, and it then tells me that I have an uncaught reference error. My number is not defined, my number all in lowercase. And it's on line 8. So I go back to Notepad++, line 8. I've got my number. And when I click on it, it's trying to link to the other my number here. And there's a difference. One's all in lowercase, one's got an uppercase N. So I need to change this to having an uppercase N. Save. And when we go back, I can refresh it, it says my number is 20. Same can be said if I've got other errors, for example. So if I type console.log and I say hello world, save. So I'm going to save that and I refresh again, that works. Okay. If, though, I take off one of the speech marks and I save it and refresh, it's going to tell me that there's an invalid or an unexpected token. So there's a syntax error. It doesn't tell me what the error is, but it tells me it's on line 7. So I could go back and I can see, there's an error here. I'm missing something out. Again, I can say, for example, this is Joe's watch. Now, looks fine. It's all in the single quotation. So I'm going to save that and refresh. But again, it's telling me syntax error, missing bracket after the argument, line 7. So let's have a look. Well, I've definitely got a bracket. Wait, I've got one single quote, two single quote, and a third one. This is what's causing my problem. So I can fix that by having double quotes here. And this way, that single quote isn't conflicting with the double quotes. So I can save it, refresh. There we go. It's fixed it. Okay, so I can use this console to help me repair any problems. The next part is we want to have a look at conditionals. And a conditional basically helps us identify whether it can say, if my condition is met, then it does something, else it'll do something else. So let's have a look at a bit of pseudocode here to help us. And just to help you, you can write comments in JavaScript, and comments just enable to write things to explain how code works without it being run. So for example here, a condition is something like this. If I am hungry, then I want to do something, then enter a restaurant. Okay? Something like this. Otherwise, else, and I'll put this all in capitals here, so this is pseudocode, else it will continue, you'll continue walking. Okay? You can also have two conditions, for example. And so this is, if I'm hungry, then it enters the restaurant. If otherwise, it'll just carry on. You could also have two conditions using else if, okay? And in this case, you can just say else if I just want to order a starter, but if what? If I am a little bit hungry. Okay, so if I'm hungry, I enter the restaurant. Else, if I'm a little bit hungry, then I order a starter. Else, I just continue walking, for example. Okay, so we can say very hungry. Okay, so this is how conditionals work. Now, in terms of the program here, this is where I can start entering this. I can then basically offer choices. Choice, of course, is a Boolean. So I want to offer yes or no, true or false. So I'm going to create a variable, define it called choice. Okay, and I'm going to say window.confirm. Okay. And I'm going to ask a question. So on here, click OK if you understand conditionals. And basically, I'm going to say if, and in brackets here, I will say choice is equals to true, which means if it's equals, then double equals is whether it's equals to. Then I want to then send an alert to the screen. So window.alert, and I can say move on to the quiz. Okay, and again, I end each line with a squiggly bracket. I can then say else, and I can then say window.alert, review this section again. Okay, so it's given me two choices. If I press OK, then it will say move on to the quiz. Otherwise, it will tell me to review this section again. So if I save this, I go back and I refresh. It says click if you understand conditionals. I say OK, move on to the quiz. I'm going to refresh it again, cancel, review this section again. Okay, quite simple bit there for you to understand, hopefully. So that then moves us on very nicely to the next part, which is basically I want to now turn this into a quiz. Okay, so we want to have a bunch of questions, 10 questions that you're gonna present to the user, and then it will give them a score at the very end. And we're probably going to say score equals 0. Okay. And as we remember, that should be okay because it is a 0 there, which is great. So it is already a number. And we could then say, let's say, call this question, for example. So we'll say question, and instead of being window confirm, because that would be okay or cancel, we want it to be one that's asking for the user to give me input. So it's not going to be an alert, it's going to be a prompt. So we want a prompt there. And we could then say, what is the capital city of China? Okay, so what is the capital city of China? And we want to then say, question equals Beijing. So if they type Beijing, then it will move the score up by 1. Okay, and we also want to say correct. So it'll say window alert, correct answer, like so. And we also want for the score to go up as well. So we can say score going up by 1. So a good way of doing this is using plus equals will move it up by 1. Okay? Otherwise, if they've got it wrong, we can just type incorrect. And once the quiz is finished, then we'll just come out that squiggly bracket there, because that's in the loop. We can just say window dot alert. Once the quiz is finished, window dot alert, you have scored, using a plus here, score, close the, put the semicolon. Okay, so if I save this now, I'm going to go over to here. I'm going to refresh. What is the capital city of China? So I'm going to put Beijing. Score, correct answer. You have scored 1 point. Okay, which is because that's the end of the quiz. If I do this, if I write lowercase Beijing, okay, it'll say incorrect. It'll say you've scored 0, because it will total it up. You will put that score at the very end of your quiz. But of course, what happens if you put a partially correct answer? Like you want to give them half a point if they put Beijing with lowercase. Well, that's where we can use the else if. So I can say else if, and I'm just going to copy this like so. And instead of saying question equals Beijing, capital Beijing, I'm going to put lowercase, and I'll put 0.5 this time. So if I save this time, go back, refresh, and if I put Beijing, all lowercase, it will then say correct answer, but it then puts 0.5. Maybe instead I need to say partially correct for this one, just to do that. Partially correct answer. And the same can be done if, for example, you want to look for years, maybe. So maybe this is the first question. So maybe I want to look for the years. Okay. And so I'm going to copy and paste this here. So I'm going to copy and paste just the question. The variable at the top will be score, is what I have at the very start, because that's what's defined at the very start. It resets the score. And so I'm going to copy that. And then underneath, I'm going to put the second question here. And I don't think it copied the whole thing. I'm going to copy that again. There we are. And so this time I'm going to ask the question, in what year did Alan Turing die? If you need to know who Alan Turing is, just have a look on Wikipedia. Very famous computer scientist, and we want to then say this time if it's between a certain date, then of course you get a score of, let's say you get a score of 1 if it's correct, then it's a score of 1. If it's between a certain date, then it's a score of 0.5. Okay, so we're going to say if question is equals to 1954, okay, then correct answer and score is +1. Perfect. That's easy. But then else if question is greater than or less than 1960, okay, and we want to say, so it's less than 1960, and so we can use double and here to meet, and question is greater than 1954, then we want to say partially correct answer. So if it's equals to 1954, it's correct. It gives you 1 point. If it's less than 1960 and it's greater than 1954, then it's a partially correct answer. So I'm going to save this. Let's run it. Refresh. So Beijing, we're going to put this in. Correct. Correct. Good. What year? So we'll say 1954. And that should give me correct, and it should give me 2 answers, which is great. Let's refresh it again. Let's do Beijing again. And this time I'm going to say 1959. And partially correct, and this time it gives you 1.5. So that comes to the end of our constructing activity. Thank you very much for watching, and look forward to seeing the consolidation.